I'm glad I did that one too, because my intentions was to do something else anyway. You know, when I say something else, I mean something outside of music. But that never worked out. I never did anything else other than.
So tell us about the Federal City experience and what Bobby created there, and how that experience begins to shape where you go with jazz studies.
Okay. Well, the important thing about Federal City was this was my first experience teaching at an institution that was not made up of not public school, but school-age kids. First time I ever worked with adults. It's the first time I ever taught in a situation. And to me,
that said, there was probably a wide range of ages. It wasn't your typical 18 to 21.
Right. But yeah, right. That's true. But there were most of the even the younger ones. To me, that was my first experience teaching that many adults, which offered a challenge that I hadn't had before. First of all, I'm thinking that these people I got to work with now have had as many experiences as I have, and what am I supposed to do here? You know, if these people have already, if they come here with that many experiences, and many of them had. I had some very good musicians, David Lee Craft, and Carlton Sloan, David Yarborough, Ralph Peters. These are all people who, many of them, probably, I mean, I'm not saying they should have gone to Howard, but many of them could have qualified to go to many other places. But Federal City was the only place that was suitable for them, you know, financially and convenience-wise. So I did get my first experience in teaching adults.
Tell us a little bit about some of the individuals. What's your recollection of David Yarborough from that period? It was probably amongst the names that you mentioned and are listed in your notes.
Right.
The one that I recognize the most and know to have done the most in jazz.
Right. Well, there was no guy before Davy, and we ended up calling him Kenyatta. His name was James Palmore. Yeah, you remember him?
James Palmore.
Well, Palmore was, as far as desire and motivation and work ethic and thinking, he was among some of the top musicians I've ever worked with. And I'm sure that probably a lot of argument from those who, because you know him, he was, I'm not saying, I don't think he committed suicide, but he ended up, you know, as a street person, and
yeah, he died recently.
Recently, yeah, about a year or so ago.
Yeah.
And he had a tough life. Most of it, I think, was self-inflicted, and
well, you know, I don't know if it's self-inflicted or simply a choice that he made.
Yeah, I'm saying, yeah.
I mean, I think for example, he practiced on the street.
Yeah, right.
And he worked on, I'd run into him and he'd be working on solos. He'd be doing this and he'd be doing that. And he was almost contemptuous of people that he considered not to be thorough.
Mm-hmm.
And to have made sort of some compromises.
I met him, and he's probably 10 years older than David Yarborough. And
was he a veteran by the time he met?
I think I'm sure he was a veteran by the time he came to Federal City. But he was very much of as much as a child, not as eccentric as he ended up being. But he was always on that borderline of, you know, being, because he used to question a lot of stuff that I gave him. But we always ended up at some medium that he said, "Okay, I'll do it your way." But he was, as I said, question many things that I had to answer to him, and sometimes I answered them to his satisfaction, and many times I didn't. And the thing that I think his downfall was the things that he questioned in life that didn't turn out exactly the way it was. He just kind of turned off and just kind of went off and said, "Man, you know, everything is bullshit." So
I ain't doing that.
but he was a thinking fella, one of the most abstract thinking students I ever had. Davy came after that, much different person, but younger, quite younger, and coming from a traditional home of achieving brothers and sisters, and I think his parents may have been college students. I know all of his brothers and sisters had gone to college, so college was not as new to him as it was to Palmore. Although intellectually, Palmore was as intellectually stimulating as anybody else. But David was more traditional and really kind of waiting for instructions to move from one thing to the other, and he did that. It was always open for suggestions, and he was able to follow through. He, in many instances, was available when things opened up for him, and he took those things. But Federal City was, I think, great for him. He could have gone to other schools too, in the sense that he was able to take what they had and build on it and move on. And there's several other students who went to Federal City who did that.
You noted particularly Ralph Peters, David LeCraft, and Carlton Sloan. Why did you identify? Tell me briefly why you identify those individuals as part of that.
No, and David was in that group too. And Palmore, these are the best players in the school. Those are the best, really. And I'm saying, and I think students, they were good students, excellent musicians.
What did Peters play?
Saxophone.
LeCraft?
David LeCraft was trumpet. He's a trumpet student.
And Sloan?
Sloan was saxophone.
Did they do anything with their music?
Not as much as Davy. Not as much as Davy. And when I said as much, I mean the fact that you know Davy and you don't know these other five guys means that he's brought some kind of attention to himself that these other guys didn't. I think as far as instrumentalists, these other guys probably could have acquired as much instrumental skills as David did, but David never. He was fairly structured and had kind of direction that he was following from a very early age. David was maybe not younger than all of them, but he was probably he was probably more typical of a high school freshman than, college freshman than the other guys. The other guys may be a couple years older.
Oh, what happened at FCC in terms of, if I can use the term, jazz pedagogy? Or was that going on there?
That wasn't not going on at that time.
So you were effectively training people that would become band instructors or music educators. That was the path that they were on.
Right. But the only thing that was different, from what was going on at Virginia State, and even what was going on at Howard, Federal City had a uniqueness. Pearl Williams-Jones was there and had a very heavy influence on seeing to it that people who came in contact with her had this gospel and blues background. You familiar with?
Yes.
Okay. Familiar with? she brought a uniqueness to that department in the sense that not everybody studied with her, but she did include and develop people.
She wasn't afraid of black music.
Oh, absolutely not.
She was embracing black vernacular
No question,
culture.
no question.
Unlike, well, I ain't gonna name no name.
Unlike Virginia State and unlike Howard at that time. You know, I mean, she was not. No, there was no reason to intimidate her. But she would have been intimidated had she been working at Howard to do the kinds of things that she did. And she didn't do anything that was so outlandish that you would, not want it to be included in your program. Yeah, but your academic program I'm talking about. But she made a big difference there. And and Bobby, I think we were able to see to it that our band, people who taught band instruments could also develop a jazz group. And
well, you gave the example of him bringing Cannonball. Were there other situations like that? Where
Hart Silver came. We had several. The time that I worked there, Lucky Thompson came there.
Lucky Thompson.
Lucky Thompson came and did he came and just played he was working in town. He came and did not a band, just him. Came and played for the kids.
I mean, he's like almost sort of a myth in jazz.
Right.
You know, like, was it really a Lucky Thompson? Where's Lucky Thompson now?
No, I'm trying to think. We had several that came through, and these people were. I'm saying now. This is prior to Donald. Let me see now. Let me get my.
Well, did Bobby have his club at that point? Because at one point he had something called the Jazz Village or something. That could have been a way that he might have, through those associations.
What do you call it? What do you call it? What was your question?
Well, I was saying, was Bobby, at the time he was teaching at FCC and bringing, on some periodic basis, these musicians in to do master classes or whatever they were doing, was he also involved in the jazz business outside of that? Because I know he had a club, however briefly.
Where was it?
It was over off 14th Street somewhere. It's called the Jazz Village. When I interviewed him, he talked about it.
Oh, okay. I don't remember that. That must have been prior to my. But he did have connections with with many people in the business.
Was he living in the same building?
Same place.
At the Spotlight then?
No. He you know where he lives now? Yeah, that's where he lives. That's when I met him. That's where he lives. Where he lives right now.
Okay.
So when he was living at the Spotlight, that was before I met him.
Okay.
And I met him in 1962 or 3. And in fact, I met him in the Howard band, the Howard Theater band. That's where I met Bobby. He was playing trombone, I was playing, and we got to talking and I ended up leaving. Charles Hampton was the head of the band to go to work with Bobby Felder, and then we established at that time a very close relationship.
One thing about Bobby, I'm wondering, beyond the music thing, he seems to have a strong concept about business.
Yes. And
about, figuring out that part of life. I just think of, when I went to visit him in his, where he lives, he had like a whole building.
Right.
His apartment, he had bought the whole building.
And it's been like that almost since I met him. In fact, I guess when he moved to that building, that was it.
When he structures his life, he said, "Oh man, wintertime I'm in Florida playing golf. I've got this going, I got that going on." He figured out a lot of stuff.
A lot of stuff, and I learned a lot from him.
And not to be sort of hypnotized by the idea of being an entertainment personality.
Yes. Yeah.
He was focused on something,
right,
or more on economics than on being a star or whatever.
My time working with him, I had to think twice about leaving the Howard Theater, because I just got there. It was like I hadn't been there more than 2 years, And to say, well, I'm leaving, because Hamp was saying, well, man, why you leave me to, and he didn't know I was going to work, but I just told him I had something else I had to do, and I knew I could do rehearsals and all. Now, again, fate, again, is the way things turned out. Suppose I had decided not to take that deal and stay with the, well, hell, the theater was closed the next year. So, there's somebody behind me said, boy, make that move now. Because this move won't be here.
Right,
So,
right.
well, and I don't know it. Look, I don't know if that's how it is, but that's how it is. Bobby bought to Federal City. Here's what he bought. He bought to them, and they bought most of his ideas about what music education is. And music education is more than European music, you know. And one is tremendously limited if that's all you know. And in most schools, you know, institutions of higher learning, including my school, and how that's what it is or was. So he was able to influence them to have his band students, people who were going to be music teachers like I was, to also be able to teach and to arrange and have something for a jazz band. Now I did that too in high school, but it was totally on trial and error. But he, you know, people who came to Federal City at that time got to, you know, got credit for playing in a jazz group. That was the first time. And, you know.
So so he's establishing the beginnings of what later blossoms at UDC and Howard.
Right. Right. Yeah, he and then he had the influence of I think the faculty probably at UDC at Federal City probably wasn't, you know, like 100% in favor of his ideas and his philosophy, but they didn't have any choice because he was in a political position of making those kinds of decisions. When I say political, I mean he and the chair of the department and the dean of the school at Federal City kind of saw eye to eye and said, let's do this, and what seemed like radical. Pearl Williams-Jones was really considered to be kind of street. You know, they kind of looked at it as being ghetto. I'm saying the professors that I finally met at Howard and all of my professors at Virginia State, they would look at that as being really kind of street music.
Well, she came out of that. Was her father Bishop Williams or something?
Yeah. That's okay though.
No, but I mean, but that church is not. That's not like being an Episcopalian.
Right. You know? But she was more bona fide coming from Bishop Williams Church over there, because I know what kind of music they did. And but what happened was, I mean, she probably would have been at that time more accepted had she come from the Episcopal Church or some Lutheran church. But,
so you see her as a really pivotal figure, not only there but in the city.
No question, absolutely no question. And you would have to have known her, and I'm talking about her influence over music teachers, and how much influence, and the people who around. I'm trying to think of the young lady's name. She's a choir director at Alpha Street. You know what I'm saying? But many people who came, who were influenced by her, had you know, a much broader perspective. I'm not saying that you don't teach the Mozart Mass. You don't. I'm not saying don't do that, but you should be also qualified and skillful enough to teach the sound of blackness. Same person. You're the same teacher, but you got to teach and understand all that. And Pearl Williams-Jones did that. And I think she did that very quietly. First of all, she died much too young to make her, you know, her effectiveness. But I think she did make a tremendous.
Were you there during the period of, there was a lot of turmoil at Federal City College?
When I got there, yeah.
Yeah, Jimmy Garrett and all those
Absolutely.
folks.
Yeah.
So how did that What impact did that have on the atmosphere and the possibilities of what you were doing?
I think
did that create an opening for it?
Absolutely, and the same opening that was created for Donald Byrd. It wasn't like the news people who were writing about Donald Byrd says that he came there because the music department was in uproar. It wasn't the music; the whole damn university. It was the whole city was in an uproar, not the music department. The music department was insignificant. And the same thing happened with
post '68.
Absolutely. And I think that
midst of Vietnam.
It was
the radicalization, civil rights movement.
So you can't confine that to the music department at FCC because everybody was. What's my man at the ghetto at the the poet who died last year before last. He was on the English faculty there. Help me. Gil Scott.
Oh.
Gil Scott was on the faculty when I came there. He was on the English. He was on his faculty. But, I mean, that was the attitude of the school. There was nothing wrong with it. So I think what happens unfortunately with the whole possibility that if you saw me playing in an orchestra with this attitude I have, the only thing you could come to, your only conclusion would be, well, either he's a hypocrite or that some of the stuff he's saying about black music is not true. I just feel that you need to be qualified and equipped to do
across the board. Now, speaking of poets, do you remember Gaston Neal?
Not personally, but I sure do remember him.
Do you remember things like the New School for Afro-American Thought?
Not personally, but I mean, I never had any direct in dealings with them, but I think that there was a place for it, and I think it served a purpose.
Let me ask you. So, how long were you at FCC?
I came in 1970, and I left in 1975, 76.
Under what circumstances?
That's when I got offered to come to Howard.
So I know one of the impetuses for us having this conversation, we've talked about this over the years that you wanted to put some things on the record, but I think it was Donald Byrd's passing that might have motivated you to say, I need to do this now. Possibly because you felt that as you sort of indicated earlier, that the representation of Byrd and how he came to Howard and what he did there and all of that isn't fully understood and not accurately being portrayed. So can you walk us through, and you just sort of talked about it, but just maybe walk us through more specifically exactly how he came to Howard, what he established, and then how you move into that situation.
He came to Howard as a reaction. I don't think he applied to come to Howard. I don't think he sent an application to come and get on the faculty. But he came to Howard as a reaction that the university had toward what was going on in this country in the 1960s, late 60s. I think that the people, I don't know who his contact was or who hired him. I know the dean that was there when is the same dean who hired me, I believe, or she was on Dean Butcher. You know Dean Butcher? She was there.
Is that Veda Butcher?
Veda Butcher, right. I think that his involvement at Howard came from an authority much higher than the dean, and either from the president or the president's office or something that was something that would supersede faculty input. In other words, when I hire a person, I've got to get permission or approval of the faculty for that person to come in. Now, when I came to Howard, there were just two of us, me, Fred, and I. So when I left, there were 10 of us. And each of the 10, other than Fred and I had to have, present them or their credentials to the faculty and have the faculty approve their, their appointment. I don't think there was any kind of faculty approval of Donald Byrd. And I think he came there because of the unrest that was all around us. And someone, somewhere out, maybe we'll get a more specific answer to that question as we look into his contribution. But he came there as to satisfy the question of whether blackness is important enough to be in the academic setting. And what I mean there is that up until he came, certain parts of black music was not, appreciated or permitted. Now I have heard various accounts about people being harassed and wanting to have had them physically put out of the music department, and that may have been possible, but I think the reason for Byrd being there was much higher than the music department, and that he was there as a direct response to or action from either the board at Howard or the president's office. His presence, I don't think, was ever appreciated the whole time he was there. I mean, what I mean by that is that first of all, I don't think he was wanted by, as I said, when I had all these people that I added to the faculty while I was there, none of that happened, I think, for him. So consequently, his colleagues would say, well, we didn't want you anyway. So
I'm sure they're not going to give you additional resources.
Right. But he survived, I think, because he had a direct pipeline to either a high administration, and I don't want to say the president's office, because I don't have any proof.
Who was president at that time?
Cheek. So, but there was someone who was able to make decisions for him, and he got resources. He did get resources, but it wasn't through the normal channel. The channel I went through was to the department chair.
But he wasn't able to build a faculty.
Right.
He may have gotten resources to do this or that, but he wasn't able to build an institutional base.
Yes. I'm not sure if that was his purpose. The more I talked to him over the years, and it could be that his purpose was just to simply shake things up so much that the school would say that we've got to do this, and I don't know if it was an intention to be there for 30 years.
He was there more as a provocateur.
I would lean that way. Now, because he did the same thing at other schools also, probably just kind of introduce himself and his program and the like. But he was at Howard, as far as I can remember, recall, 3 or 4 years. He had over that period, there was enough. It was not enough time to graduate any students. So he didn't have, during his period of tenure there, he did not graduate any students. And again, I don't think that was his intention. I think his intention was to shake it up enough to get it going. The fact he didn't graduate students also implies that he did not leave a curriculum that would be suitable for a systematic music program. In other words, certain things are required. Certain number of hours are required to have this, that, and other, and the curriculum that most of the things that he left were skeletal. That's why I'm not sure if that was his intention to be there long enough to have made a permanent impact.
He was allowed to recruit a band.